Our primary objective, our real purpose, is to place our focus and intent with the ears, as this really is the function that the simulators serve, the means by which the true reality can be recognized from the comparison that the simulated realms provide. For through the simulator mechanics can real awareness experience that which isn't the absolute everything all is reality which it is a part of, experiencing isolated fragments, parts of the everything, ideas that can be isolated and then effected as individualized viewers, that this comparison be afforded. Pieces, fragments, isolated parts, ideas, to the everything of the true reality, to afford recognition of the ears. As everything equals itself, that which we do reflects upon us. The more we move into positions of completely embracing of a particular intent and a focus, the more we become absolute as to whatever this intent and a focus happens to be. To become as the real light beings we actually are, we must stand absolutely as our true being states, achieved as we release that which isn't isness-placed real awareness intent. For that which isn't the isness true reality must be then the isolated comparison providing pieces and parts, which we only will hold to through the little intents of the personal self, its attachments and agreements, and denying ourselves then our true real awareness positions, universal positioning which can only be so, absent of any of the created ideas that as we cling to them retain us in creation as their effects. And so it is very much a process of earning the way, as DUANE has put it, our actions, choices, reflecting as experience, and as our actions become more awareness beneficial, as we promote the opportunity and real purpose of is recognition, what we experience becomes that which in turn facilitates more so our own awareness processes. And so, as we recognize this, as this becomes apparent, so we have the incentive to assist and support other beings from creational admiring, as in reality we all are this same overall everything isness reality. In essence, as we help others, we actually are helping ourselves. We actually are helping the overall isness everything that we all are with its continuous self-recognition imperative. And so, on the real side, we constantly are scouring creation throughout its multi-dimensional construct, seeking those ready for the opportunity of the ears, or perhaps on the verge. The guides will determine and either approach the beings themselves, or give the new friends the opportunity to do so, or that maybe assistance is afforded with certain situations where it makes sense to do so. In this real side experience, I would be in the company of a group of beings. We were all operating from our real awareness positions, absent of inserting a simulated form into the experience, as we tend only interject a simulated form where interaction with the beings involved or alteration to the situations are required. Wherever we were viewing in multi-dimensional creation would be a position where a kind of school had been established. In a way, it reminded me a little of the movie series The X-Men, where schools had been provided as a sanctuary for humans who had developed what would be considered powers and skills somewhat outside the norm. For here, in this real side school, would there be accommodated as though all manner and variety of body types and forms, as though each being, although representing a particular species, had developed abilities that would be considered extraordinary in relation to their respective kind. If these individuals were shunned or scorned by their species wasn't made apparent, although this would be a safe assumption. But overall, it was a school for those with special gifts, abilities, skills, etc. For indeed, in creation, we can decide anything. We can create the consciousness as we choose, and then effected are the body forms with whatever abilities we desire. All beings within the school were more inclined to operate in ways that were not destructive. No student present was in any way dark force affiliated. Although, regardless of the choices we make, the consciousness design and any special abilities we then effect as the body forms possessing, these all will still be as ideas that we are retained as the effects of, and absent of the intent set with the ears, so we will create and chase our ideas indefinitely, forging whatever corresponding simulated experiences as a result. As I said earlier, we tend to be deployed to engage with the beings who either are deciding to step up and become more aware, or are on the verge of doing so, as oftentimes we can be the catalyst, or that which sparks their process of awareness through the years pertaining references we provide, the new you song connection, etc. And this would be the case here, as impressions suggested that virtually this entire school of gifted beings and body types were at a stage in their creational process where they would be receptive to the opportunity of the ears. The group I was in the company of, as we stood as our real awareness positions, would disband, as though accompanying me to this school, but now it would fall upon me to proceed alone. Of course, from the perspective position of the real awareness, no being enters or leaves our presence, as everything is. Such comings and goings can only be possible where simulated mechanics afford this illusion, as in this case, with this being a visual and thus a simulated experience. I would enter the school, retaining my aside from the simulated situation, real awareness standing. As such, I would explore unseen. And indeed, as I proceeded, would I witness the sheer array of species present and in residence at the school. There would be as though teachers present, who equally were endowed with developed capability, were as though assisting the various body form students in the managing of their abilities and even in advancing them, additionally managing the school, which served, as I said, as a kind of a retreat or sanctuary. There was one particular individual I was drawn to, although all were potentials in regards to being ready for the real purpose of his recognition. He would be a human with blonde hair and seemed somewhat reclusive, almost uncomfortable in social situations, and were his mannerisms and traits to be diagnosed on the earth, he may have been considered on the spectrum, autistic, or with Asperger's, etc. For indeed, many who are on the spectrum tend to be a little less one-dimensionally focused than most, as though they are operating more so multi-dimensionally, even on the physical level and physical body forms, and this can increase the likelihood of they accessing the other parts of the created self, the ethereal, etc., the seat of the psychic sciences, accessing what may be termed supernatural ability. He had applied to this school, as this seemed to be the requirement for entry, that a resume be afforded, and if it revealed the suitability of the individual in what was a school designed specifically for those with a special ability and skills, then acceptance would be granted. He would be sat beside one of the teachers. He would be wearing a garment pulled so tightly around himself and with a hood included that very little of his face could be discerned. The teacher would be a male, human also, and one of a more oriental persuasion. For although the various assorted species present did coexist and intermingle, there would be a tendency for segregation taking place among the students and teachers, where generally an individual would have a preference for those of his or her own kind. All the personal selves of these assorted beings would have their attitudes and discriminatory views, etc., especially as although overall ready to step up, they had not as yet done so, and very much then were completely personal self-immersed and operating. The resume provided by the new human student was extensive. His particular area of skill or expertise seemed to be along more the technological lines, as though a very gifted human in regards to technology applications, and as I looked, his dossier of information would be awash with advanced science knowledge and accolades. Seems he was accepted into the school based on his particular skill set, but as I have often mentioned, as we share similar intents with others, we tend to find ourselves associating with them physical level or real side. And even though the personal selves of all these beings, including the science human, were perhaps unaware of what was an overall shared intent to now recognize the years, a real awareness decision that had as yet to reach the personal selves, it wasn't just then that they each had developed powers that drew them together, but the real intent of the years had drawn them into a conjunction. Interestingly, impressions revealed this particular science-orientated human was myself, or rather, part of my created consciousness-affected body forms. For we all are multi-dimensional, expressing from consciousness will be all manner of body forms and vehicles that operate through creation, its life levels, etc., all animated by the same real awareness, but that the personal self may be oblivious to the extent of vehicles in operation. This individual, then, was an aspect of my consciousness, a body form part effected from it, on a particular dimension of real side creation, that was choosing to become a part of this school of soon-to-be stepping up beings. revealing how the process of awareness is an establishing of intent and a focus with the personal self, and which increasingly extends and gathers up all parts, the body, vehicles, etc., that the entirety of the created self becomes aligned with the real intent of his recognition. For indeed, as this impression was received, so would the personal self as though want to step into the form that was this blonde-haired human, through the recognition of it being as a part of the personal self-consciousness, but was seemingly unable, as though a suit that wouldn't quite fit. It was a curious sensation, being simultaneously the real awareness view, witnessing an aspect of my affected consciousness, and the personal self trying to as though enter and operate through the aspect's form, but unable to do so, as after all preferable was this to be retained as a real awareness orchestrated experience. Any personal self-interjection or ideas such as this situation in regards to this aspect may well render the experience one where the real awareness is removed from, with its unlimited ability, creational oversight, where it takes the reins of the experience, knows exactly what to do, where to go, and the personal self, like a passenger in a car, just sits back and observes the simulated rollout without interference. And so the personal self would be somewhat put in check, and cease its attempting to be this consciousness affected body-vehicle aspect. The human aspect would go through as though an extensive training regiment, maybe not literally, but representing a refining of his particular skill set, as this school was established to help provide. Interestingly, the Oriental teacher that was overseeing my aspects of progress was aware to the extent that he actually could determine my presence. Not that I visually was presenting a form he could see, but as though his own real awareness was affording him impressions of my real awareness presence in the school. As I said, all the school inhabitants, students and teachers alike were preparing to step up, and so here was my opportunity to make first contact, as it were. I would manifest then a simulated form that the Oriental teacher could perceive. At first he was a little taken aback, and he would as though assume a rather aggressive attitude, incorporating an eye-to-eye staring with the form my real awareness was animating. I would hold my gaze with his own, and he would back off somewhat hurriedly and relinquish his aggressive display. It's often been said that the eyes are the windows to the soul. From a creational perspective, this would entail then the consciousness design and personal intent more so. The soul in actuality has been revealed as being one of the body vehicles, in fact, the astral body. But where one operates from the real awareness position through an animated form on the real side, the eyes of such a form would more so be windows then to the endless true reality that the real awareness operating through the form is a part of, and a glimpse then into the unknown. The true reality may indeed be somewhat unnerving for one who had resigned themselves for the longest time as creationally immersed only. That, yes, my objective was to afford the opportunity of the ears to every school dweller, and to bring another aspect of my personal self on board also, but additionally I came bearing a warning that the dark forces, always watching for those who are preparing to step up, or indeed those already on their processes, will be swift to interfere and disrupt as they seek to keep all in creation. As through the agreements that all consciousness generally comprises of as its foundation, that being a support structure that maintains the control the dark forces have over this simulator, so as the awareness process is a releasing of this agreement, then like a house of cards, can potentially the dark forces' control be compromised and even topple, absent of the required agreement to maintain it. In this case, the dark forces were planning to destroy the school with all students and teachers within it. That such agreement to the dark forces' power as established through all consciousness allows that they can take such destructive action, as until a greater releasing of agreements through consciousness is so, beings are very vulnerable to the potential effects others can choose to exact through agreements that allow that they can, and naturally then, with beings on the verge of initializing such an awareness process, they have the entirety of the consciousness to face and release, a consciousness overall designed as agreement to the darker forces, and as such, the students and teachers would be very susceptible to any dark force decided attacks until such idea agreements begin to be released. The teacher would heed my warning and the school would be evacuated prior to the designated moment of its destruction at the hands of the darker forces. I would remain, though operating still from my side from creation, real awareness view. For although the dark forces realized the students and teachers had been relocated to a safe position, they still intended to at least destroy the school, almost out of spite, and I decided to not allow even that to take place. For many of the students had occupied a position at the school for quite the duration, and from their personal self-perspectives, such destruction of that which they had considered home would be grief-eliciting. And although the creating of emotion isn't negated, as we create what we do and simply let it go, as we learn to create as we will, then resume our nowness positions, with those just stepping up, so they will be very personal self-immersed still, and tend to sit in their created effects for far longer than is necessary, as they cling to their attitudes and emotional reactions, and so far better would it be in this situation to mitigate what would be another emotional triggering situation, as such a trauma might be enough to even discourage the students and teachers from even taking the first step into the endless unknown of their true being real awareness states. As such, I would wait in the vacated school. The dark forces had deployed a particular agent to bring about the destruction of the building, maintaining my real awareness view absent of a form interjection that I could observe him, but he unable to perceive me or realize he was being watched. His body form was that of a kind of red-scaled, skinned demon, and within the basement area of the school he would enter, as originally had been the intent to destroy also the school inhabitants, and so of course his operation involved sneaking in and setting up the means by which this would be so undetected in a more unused area of the building. He began rigging a very sophisticated technological device, an advanced dark force bomb of a kind, with undoubtedly extreme destructive capability. But as he attempted his assembly, I would as though create simulated appendages that, although were still beyond his ability to see, would dismantle the various parts of the bomb. The real awareness, with its creational oversight, having the knowledge and ability as to how to disassemble alien technology. This had him somewhat confused, as from his perspective and view, every step of his assembly would curiously be dismantled, and this would continue on until, frustrated, he abandoned his mission, and the school was safe. And very likely, even as I awoke, and perhaps the demon attempted to set up his bomb again, my real awareness would continue this disrupting of his efforts. But for now, the various body forms of the gifted students, the teachers, and my consciousness-affected aspect was safe. All would shortly be engaged with their awareness processes, and afforded the new sound connection to the true reality, and whatever references and assistance they required, for as I said, all were ready for the opportunity.
Okay, that's cool. And yes, anybody can do that. The real guides do. They step up and, without destruction, that's how you provided the situation to be okay. See, that's cool. So this is where we be creative. How fun. Thank you, Kevin.